the luxury of making our selection so early gives us really this great transition period. And so I know Dr. Jamison has been very present in the district already, learning about us, getting really up to speed quickly so that she can hit the ground running. And so with that, I really will just turn it over to her to share more about her vision. And you'll see very quickly why the school board is so excited about her leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to have an opportunity to spend some time with you tonight and look forward to seeing you all in person, safely, of course. This will be one of many opportunities for us to connect, and I want to thank President Herndon Miller and the Maplewood Richmond Heights Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to serve our students, our families, our staff, and our community. My goal today is quite simple. I would like for you to learn a little bit more about me, as well as me answering any questions that you may have. I also believe that it's critical for me to give voice to the impact of what is now being referenced as the twin pandemic, the impact of COVID-19 on our community, coupled with systemic racism. It has impacted us all in various ways. I recognize we need time to heal, we need time to rebuild, and I am committed to partnering with our families and our Maplewood Richmond Heights community through this process. So what you will find about me is that I'm really quirky, but I also believe in building relationships and getting to know others. And this is one of the quick team building activities that I have for us. Before you drop your answer in the chat, what I would like for you to do is type your name, your child or your children's school, and your child or children's favorite movie or book. And so you'll put that information in the chat. And when I say go, the chat will blow up like a bomb. It's called a chat bomb. And we will see what our children's interests are as it relates to movies or books. So I'll give you a few moments to populate the chat with the information. All right, and if you can hit enter. They are coming in. Trolls, anything Lego or Minecraft, Hunger Games, The Last Dragon. Awesome, keep them coming. So I never ask a question that I'm unwilling to answer myself. So my daughter actually loves It by Stephen King. Any Stephen King book she devours, and I do mean in 3 to 4 days she's done. And my son actually is interested in the Boxcar Children, which for me was one of the childhood books that I read when I was in school. So it's nice to see him pick it up and be as enthusiastic as I was when I once read it. So I want to give you an idea of who I am as a person. And I thought the best way to do this would be through a few pictures. So I'm going to start at the bottom right corner. That is a picture of young Benita Jamison with my aunt, Mary Bright. And the reason why I chose that picture is, one, the gaze that she's having when she's staring down at me, but also the belief of family and the value of family. And that was one of the reasons why I was so excited to apply and join the Maplewood Richmond Heights School District and community, because I value family. And that picture for me captured that. The picture in the upper right-hand corner, believe it or not, is my high school senior picture. I went to Valley Park High School, and that's where I developed one of the better relationships that I have had and continue to have, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I am a crafty person, so I actually do event planning in the free time that I don't have, but weddings, baby showers, birthday parties, you name it. And so that picture is actually some of the items that I created for a bridal shower. The picture at the very bottom, I am a nature person. I do canoe, I jog. I also like to hike. I am excited to have an opportunity to be able to participate in a canoeing trip with the middle school on Thursday. So I'll let you know how that goes a little later. And then the upper picture is a picture of me and the KPMG kangaroo. I believe that the partnership between community partners as well as with our families are critical. And so that partnership actually allowed us an opportunity to have books donated to a few of our schools. The picture to the left of that is actually another picture of me when I was younger. For some reason, I thought I was quite fashionable, and I thought that would be a neat one to share. And then that is actually me in a Spider-Man costume. I dressed up as Spider-Man for Halloween with my children, and we have a tradition. So all of us were some form of Spider-Man, Spider-Boy for the last Halloween. And then the bottom picture really is one that I hold dear to my heart, because when you start any doctoral program, they tell you don't start a new job, don't have children, and I did all of the don'ts. But I was excited to have an opportunity to see the dissertation from the other side. So that's Dr. Douglas and Dr. Dorner, and they both hooded me from the University of Missouri, Columbia. So this is just insight into who I am, just a little bit from my personal and professional life. But I want to share a little bit more about my journey and why I'm prepared to lead and partner with you to ensure the success of your children, our children. So from an educational standpoint, I received my bachelor's degree from St. Louis University, my educational specialist degree from the University of Missouri, Columbia, and I completed my doctorate from the University of Missouri, Columbia. And my focus was school structures that impact the academic and behavioral outcomes of adolescent Black boys. So from that experience, I've had an opportunity to lead in varying size districts, so small and large, similar to the size of Maplewood Richmond Heights. I've been a classroom teacher at both bookends at the elementary level and also at the high school level. And I've also taught at the middle school level, which is very rare, but it allowed me an opportunity to see the vertical articulation from a curricular standpoint. I've been a principal at the elementary and middle school level, and I also have served as the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction and the assistant superintendent of student services. My current role as the executive director of integrated supports and accelerated learning has blended together really all of the things that I love. So I get to support principals who of course support teachers who support children. I have an opportunity to support with district-wide implementation of multi-tiered systems of support, which really revolve around supports for students in academics, behavior, and the social emotional realm. And I also get to partner with our special school district partner and deliver professional development. While those are just a few items that I want to share, really my most proud role to have is that of mother. And so you not only get to get me, but you also inherit my family. And what I will tell you is that, like you, I have experience monitoring 2 students during the pandemic, and I was pleased and elated when they finally went back to school. But I also recognize the challenges sometimes when you have to support your children that have mental health issues or are struggling with anxiety. And so 2 of my children do experience and have those challenges, and it has taught me advocacy and also how to support others as I carry on with my duties in the capacity that I hold today. I'm a firm believer that a great teacher can change the life of a student. So this is Dr. Lisa Gross. She was my 4th grade and 6th grade teacher at Valley Park High School, and that's the connection to the high school picture that I shared before. But she is the one who showed me that maintaining the humility and dignity of students and the relationships opened the door for access to curriculum and content. And so I was a very mischievous child, probably like most. And I recall a time when I had an assignment that I had to take home and actually have signed. And I cut off a signature from another assignment, glued it onto the assignment I was supposed to have signed, and turned it in. Not one time did Dr. Gross point out the error of my ways. She gave me another copy and had me to take it home and get it signed. She actually is written into my dissertation because it was an example of modeling for me what I wanted to be and who I am as an educator. So what do I believe? I believe that our work revolves around ensuring that our learners, our students, they get what they need. And as the superintendent of the district, my role is to support principals so that they can support teachers so that our children get what they need. And so I am frequently very visible in classrooms, and most of the time I'm not there to see the teacher, I'm there to see your children. I plan to talk to them, ask them questions, I love on them like they're my own. I actually got a text from my son today, which I joked about, and the text basically said, educators, the only profession where people worry about other people's children. And so I say that to say, when I was a teacher, when I was a principal, I would call the students in my buildings my children. And my son asked me why I did that. I said, because I want for them the exact same thing that I want for you. And so for me, what I believe as we look at this partnership that we will establish are these things. First off, it is always going to be about your children. So you don't have to worry about it being a decision that is not going to include what is best for them. The other piece that I believe is that principals are our levers. They improve outcomes for adults, who in turn then improve outcomes for students. And part of that is ensuring that they are being developed professionally. And for me, that means supporting and working through my cabinet members so that they are suited to go out and support those individuals in the buildings. Great teaching is the #1 key to student success. And so for me, that means from professional development, ensuring that we're continuing with our guaranteed PD that we provide to new hires, keeping a focus on our metaphors, and then also looking at how do we increase student engagement PK-12 while giving them opportunities to continue to facilitate their own learning. And the piece that I think holds dear to my heart is students are more likely to succeed when families are authentically engaged and involved. And so I want to be clear about how we define engagement. And so part of that will continue to develop as we have opportunities to have conversation, because engagement looks different for everyone. And so whether that means instead of sending a long letter to you, I might send a video. Maybe that means that I'm sending something out via text message, or maybe it's a time where I'm coming out and meeting you within your child's school so that we can have coffee and conversations. So the aim is to create space for us to continue to have discourse and develop relationships over time. Partnerships for me are critical. I talked about that in the other slide. And that is one of my main roles, to say, how do we leverage the businesses within our community, and then also the expertise of you as parents, because you bring a lot to the table. Those opportunities extend learning and opportunities for our students. And so that is something that I plan to focus on and tap into your toolboxes as a means to ensure that our students are getting the very best that they need as they explore future careers. And then the last piece is relationships and collaboration underpin all change efforts. I'm a very relational person. I am one who will drop off a card. And my grandfather said that that's rare, but I do think that when you give a person a handwritten card or a message, it lets them know that you're thinking about them. But I do believe in developing and nurturing those relationships and learning the names of our parents, learning the names of our students and our staff, because that's when they know that they feel valued. So these are the things that I believe. And it is my hope that as you watch me interact in schools, interact with you, interact with our children, that you will begin to trust me and entrust your children with me as I lead our district into the next era, which I would like to call Maplewood Richmond Heights 3.0. And so it's about listening and learning at this time. It is about me getting to know you, and it is about working through and with others to build a foundation so that we can move forward. This I believe. And lastly, I'm a quote person. I love to read. I thought that this quote was fitting. We can cultivate family engagement in 3 ways: by building relationships, by fostering communication, and by engaging in meaningful collaboration. And I will tell you that I don't define what that collaboration looks like. The feedback that you provide to me will help me shape what collaboration looks like. And it will also give me an opportunity to determine how and the best way to communicate with you. But you will also find that this quote says family engagement. We also know that the dynamics of our families are very different. And so we have some grandparents raising children, we have parents, mother and fathers in households, but I wanted to be inclusive in this approach so that we're capturing everyone. That's all I have. I am excited about the opportunity to be able to answer questions from you, and I will turn it over to Ms. Kaufman to begin to facilitate the question and answer.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Jamison. We did solicit questions from families before the event this evening. So have a couple of those that have come in, and certainly would encourage participants to, send other things if they're thinking about them right now. Dr. Jamison, I know you've also been watching and even participating in some MRH school board meetings over the last several months. And so I think one of the first questions that I'm going to elevate is around our special school district partnership, and certainly the services that are provided to students with special needs. Specifically a question about your experience working with students with disabilities and how you plan to support all of our kids, but particularly kids with, identified diagnoses as superintendent.
Thank you. And so as my daughter would say, that's my jam. A lot of my work has been around supporting students. And I want to have a caveat because it's identified students and those students who have not been identified, because I think sometimes we forget about that. And so I shared a little bit about my role as the Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services. And even in my current role as the Executive Director, I am responsible for district-wide implementation of multi-tiered systems of support, which includes the liaison role for special school districts. So we have a core team and we look at students as a cross-section. So not to identify students, but to say what supports do students need. And so if we have students who have behavioral needs, academic needs, social emotional needs, we have tiered interventions. And then based on the behaviors that manifest, we support teachers through professional development so that they can then implement those interventions. And then we provide coaching and feedback. And so that will transfer in my role. In addition to that, I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Gleason. And from those conversations, we were able to talk about how we would further support the unfinished learning that our students with IEPs experience, and then how we can also tap into additional resources from special school district like PETA, which is their parent engagement diversity partnership. And they come in and they facilitate professional development to our parents so that they are better able to support their children. So if you have a child who has autism, if you have a child who is experiencing ADHD and you're looking for ways to support at home. But the other piece of that I would say that I've learned from being a parent myself with students who are experiencing anxiety and have been diagnosed is this idea of advocacy. And so I have learned as a parent to advocate. And so one of the things that I will work with Mr. Gleason with, as well as with Vince Estrada, is to have time to teach parents to advocate so that they know what they're looking for. And so my experience is quite vast. I am looking forward to identifying additional ways to support our learners, those identified and those are not. And I would also mention to say those who are twice gifted. And that's a group that we sometimes forget about, but those students who are on both ends of the spectrum, how do we continue to accelerate and enrich them to ensure that they get what they need as well. And so we will have ongoing conversation. I'm actually slated to have a meeting with Dr. Keenan. She's the superintendent of special school district. And really that conversation is more around resources and what additional supports we can get in the district to support our learners.
Wonderful, thanks. There's a couple of questions I think about really just deepening the work of MRH, and you've already dubbed it MRH 3.0 here, but one parent and also teacher submitted a question about the MRH being a really dynamic educational environment and wondering about plans to continue the dynamic program offerings to students broadly, and would love to hear your reaction to that.
So the metaphors that was one of the reasons why I was drawn to MRH. I love the idea of project-based learning, in addition to students being the facilitators of their own learning and that inquiry piece. And so as we think about schools as studios all the way to the apprenticeship, looking at that vertical articulation. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is how do we expand and build upon that? And so the idea that I have is around career awareness, and students are not too early to begin. And as Ms. Kaufman stated, I've already been in schools. I've had conversation with some of your children. I've met James, who has a twin brother. I've met Dakota, and our students are advocates for themselves, and they are able to tell us what they need and what they want. And so from that career awareness standpoint, I'm looking at how do we expose students to a variety of careers and connect them with business partners, which would include our parents who have varying roles within the community. So that can look like informational interviews. We have elementary students who can interview professionals and gain information that can be tied into the projects and the things that they're doing in the classroom aligned to standards. Students can do job shadows. And then for our younger learners, like in the ECC, if you have students who are interested in becoming a veterinarian, they have an opportunity to go and do site visits at a local, when COVID and the pandemic give us some normalcy, to go and observe, to do a visit, and to ask questions, because again, it's all about inquiry and it's about sparking interest. And we do recognize that those interests will change over time. I shared before, my son told me he wanted to be a YouTuber. Now he wants to build airplanes. So that's a stark difference from what he wants to do. And so our role as educators is to ensure that we're giving them those experiences. But the other piece around that is really coupling it into several buckets. What does awareness look like? What does exploration look like? And then how do we prepare them so when they get to the high school, they have that apprenticeship opportunity where they're out in the community, fully immersed in internships and having their learning to be built into that. And so that are a few of the things that I'm considering. And then also thinking about how do we then begin to work through them with teachers, because our teachers are another reason why I was drawn to MRH. We have committed teachers who have a wealth of knowledge and who are committed to ensuring that our students get what they need. And so having conversation with them and engaging them around what do we do, what can we do to continue to build upon our metaphors and the experiences that our learners get within our classrooms.
Great. Building on that question, there's also a question about just the electives and kind of the course offerings that are available both to our middle school students and our high school students. Is there any thoughts that you've got about maximizing what we've got and making sure our kids get access to lots of different opportunities?
So that's an awesome question. And the benefit, as Ms. Kaufman shared, of me being in buildings is that I've been talking to teachers. But I will first say that it starts with students. And so Missouri provides through Missouri Connections an opportunity for students to be surveyed and to give us feedback regarding what their interests are. So I would say that's the starting point. And I believe in student voice. And so as part of my entry plan, I do have down to actually begin to engage some of our student leadership and asking them what they want. And so that's the first point. You have to first identify what the needs are. And the other piece is looking at what scheduling looks like. And so one of the things that I discussed earlier was how do we use our community as a place where students go and learn, and how do we expand that through businesses and partnerships? And so that's a piece of that, but we have to be creative about how we identify those opportunities, look at our scheduling opportunities, and be creative and think outside of the box. And so some of these courses, like typically you'll have a semester-long course, but there is an opportunity for us to offer some very creative quarter courses that will give students some exposure. And so those are just a few of the ideas. I do believe that it starts with student voice. We can make assumptions. I do know that there's a need for some expansion of electives and looking at how do we streamline and then also do that within the confinements of our space. But again, my first thought is how do we then partner with local universities and giving students opportunities to go and really live out what we are calling that apprenticeship so that they can experience real world learning and bring it back into the school and make some connections aligned to standards and content.
Great. I'll remind folks that if they've got questions, they can put them in the chat, but we'll go to one that has popped up here. Marissa Shepard, thank you for submitting the question about the potential for new athletic offerings. And I'm going to assume you mean extracurricular, but maybe you also are wondering about how that impacts, the PE offerings and things like that.
That is an amazing question. So first and foremost, again, I believe in student voice. So dependent on the direction of that question. So I'll start if we're talking about including, say, maybe adding the football program back. Not saying that that's what is being referenced, but I do know from my time growing up and visiting the Maplewood Richmond Heights community that there once was a football program. And so if that is the case, again, starting with student voice, seeing what the interests might be, engaging parents and our stakeholders to get an idea of what will best meet the needs of our students. And the reason why I started there, because I also believe that when we give students a sense of belonging and provide those opportunities, they are more invested in the school. And research talks about that investment and how it impacts student outcomes as it relates to GPA and grades. The same is said for extracurricular activities. And I believe that we have the capacity in our staff to expound upon what we currently have. And so again, having those conversations with students, I don't want to make any assumptions because personally, my daughter likes photography club and she went and started a photography club. That might be an interest, but you may have someone who's interested in something that's STEM related. And so I think as we begin to think about what the desires are of our students, we have to tap into the talents of our team and see if they are able to provide that. And so it's more about engaging. Again, I'm in the stage where I'm listening and learning. So these questions are definitely ones that I am going to take notes upon and take that back and begin to think about what the needs are of our community.
Well, so far, those are all the questions that I've seen. Obviously, this is just the very beginning of the relationship building that families will be able to do with Dr. Jamison. Also appreciative that Roxana Meacham is with us too. I know she was in travel, so joined a few moments late, but glad to have her consistency in this transition is happening incredibly smooth, which we're thankful for at the board level as well. Are there any other things you'd like to address, Dr. Jamison? I know there's probably 1,000 things that you could talk about, but in this first opportunity, feel free to expand.
So I did take the liberty of creating a Padlet. And so one of the things the pandemic taught us is that we have to be flexible and extend grace. So this Padlet will give you an opportunity to pose your questions. I promise I'm going to get to them, and I was eagerly checking throughout the day to see if I had any. And so I do have a couple, as you can see, but they're anonymous. And the reason why I like anonymity, because it gives you an opportunity to feel comfortable with asking whatever questions that fall upon your heart. There are no questions off limits. I have been asked about my peanut butter preference. I have been asked about, what person I admire and what question would I ask them if they were still here today. And so again, feel free to ask me the most quirkiest question or something that really is twirling around in your head. And I assure you that I will give a response. As Ms. Kaufman said, this is just one of many opportunities, but I look forward to connecting. I look forward to seeing you in the community, and I look forward to continuing to build a relationship with you so that you feel comfortable and we begin to trust each other as we engage upon improving outcomes for our children. So I want to thank you for your time and have a great night. And again, if for any of you, if you are watching from work or if you're watching from home and you get up off the couch and you say, I wish I would have asked, please take a moment and drop it on the Padlet.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining, especially on a busy evening, I'm sure, for everyone. And you can always reach out to my office. Everybody knows how to reach me, I'm sure. So thanks again for your time and your input. It's always great to see people engage with us. All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good one.